Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. On today's pod, we get to preview the Super Bowl. I'm Evan Rankin, and I'm joined by.
Caleb Colson.
And now, let's talk NFL. And now, let's talk about the Super Bowl, folks. This is the big game. The game everybody always waits for. Almost everybody in the United States seems to watch this football game. I believe the statistics is about 1/3 of our population actually genuinely watches this football game. But the fan bases of two teams are extremely excited and are waiting in anticipation for this matchup down in Arizona this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard some rumors about people being like, well, this is going to be kind of like a not that great of a Super Bowl because, it's the Chiefs and like they're kind of becoming a powerhouse, but I think it's going to be a great one because it's two really good teams just all around. I mean, the Chiefs' offense is definitely, I think, stronger than their defense, and the Eagles are a little bit more balanced, but I think it's going to be a really good dogfight. It's going to be great, and I've heard a few states might start are in the talks about making Super Bowl Monday like a state holiday.
Ooh.
So, I mean, obviously this is a huge weekend for the entire United States. Even if you're not a huge football fan, you watch this game, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's a little bittersweet because it marks the end of the season, but what a way to end off the season on such usually amazing game.
Super exciting this weekend as the Chiefs and the Eagles are going to match up. And like you mentioned, people might be looking at the Chiefs as kind of a dynasty at this point, reaching the Super Bowl for their third season out of four.
Mm-hmm.
But the Eagles, likewise, could be kind of similar to the Chiefs were a couple years ago. They kind of come onto the scene. Young, impressive, mobile quarterback, very talented. Obviously the coaches are pretty different, but I do see some kind of shades of the old Chiefs in this Eagles team. So is this Eagles team going to be able to, quote unquote, maybe dethrone this Chiefs team, although it's been a few years since they truly won it? Or is this Chiefs team going to be able to reclaim that title and kind of really bounce back? And like you mentioned, I think Super Bowl Monday would be awesome to have as a holiday. Yeah. Take some time off, maybe extend the festivities in the night a little bit later on that Super Bowl Sunday. But I think today, just to really kind of dive into this game a little bit more, me and Caleb are going to bring to you some of our keys to this football game and just talk about what's going to be important for each team to try to pull off this victory.
Yeah, and I think while we're talking, we were starting to talk about like each team. We want to go over about two different keys for each of them. And with Chiefs, we talked about their running backs kind of being a dark horse, really important part of their game. And then, of course, flustering Jalen Hurts as this is his first Super Bowl.
So those are like kind of our 2 points that we wanted to bring to the table for the Chiefs for sure. Like Caleb mentioned, the running backs and what we want to talk about there, at least what I wanted to mention about the running backs is they need to have a semblance of a run game here to complement the pass game. The Chiefs pass game has been very dominant throughout the season, throughout the playoffs. It's usually what wins them games. It can really help them get out to a lead or help them come back from maybe a deficit. But it's going to be extremely important that they have some sort of a run game to complement that passing game, because if they're one-dimensional, no matter what, especially in a Super Bowl and against a team like the Eagles with a defense that is as talented, as impressive, and as proven as they are this season, the Chiefs cannot let themselves become one-dimensional, and they need to have the benefit of a stouter running game.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happens to a one-dimensional team when the Eagles played the Niners. I mean, sure, that's an extreme example because they lost their quarterback and lost another quarterback, and eventually we're going to have to go to the CMC as an emergency. But like when a team goes one-dimensional, in this case one-dimensional in the run game, we saw the Eagles have their way completely. But I think they'll still be able to have their way if this Chiefs offense can't run the ball. But I think they also need to use their running backs to play to their strengths and use them really well in the run game or in the pass game like they have all season. I mean, the running backs have like 700 yards receiving combined between Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco. And I think they do a really good job, at least Andy Reid with his schemes and Eric Bieniemy with the shovel passes and the screens. I think they really need to take advantage of this aggressive Eagles D line and do those screens and those just little short pop passes to their running backs to get easy yards. But yeah, run game is definitely going to be important, and getting Isaiah Pacheco and that speed out to the perimeter definitely going to be a big part of that offense.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's terrific points there, and especially with like the screen game, that can just be like that can be a supplement or even just an addition to a run game that could come from these running backs. Pacheco or McKinnon could end up, shouldering a load on the ground. But like you say, both of them are very dangerous in the passing game. And if you could open up a situation where the Chiefs are able to move the ball, whether it's not relying on the run, but able to move the ball for some positive yardage with their running backs, as well as have their typical and normal offense with the passing game and the screen game and Travis Kelce and the multitude of threats that Patrick Mahomes has in his wide receiving core. It could be a huge key to help push the Chiefs over the edge in this game.
Yeah, and I think something that is important to mention is kind of like the screen game and those shovel passes are almost like the Chiefs' running game. Like, sure, they have some decent running schemes, but like they use those screens and those short passes as their running because they're low risk plays. They don't have to use a volatile system like just an air raid offense and risk turning the ball over. So they do those to help supplement the run game. But eventually the Eagles are going to start keying off on that. So they definitely need to have that traditional pound the rock and to get the ball moving.
Exactly. A multitude of threats. We could talk about it for both offenses, but especially here for the Chiefs is going to be balancing those running backs, having them create value in this game and, be an extra tool, if not a tool that could supplement for something that maybe the Eagles defense might be targeting, which could be the Chiefs' offensive passing attack. So real quick before we dive into the Eagles' keys, we're going to give you a little defensive key for the Chiefs. On the Chiefs side of the things, we really think it's going to be important that they target Jalen Hurts, and obviously this is a pretty easy to say statement. It sounds dumb. Oh yeah, stop the quarterback of the strong offense that you're opposing, but the threats that Jalen Hurts presents due to the fact that he can, almost at any time scamper off for 7 yards. It's kind of hard to understate exactly how valuable he is, or hard to overstate how valuable he is. So I think the Chiefs defense and Steve Spagnuolo are going to be really targeting this.
Yeah, and I think it's really impressive how Jalen Hurts has been able to take control of the ball because sure he'll pass it, but he'll also run it. And of course, he's mobile enough that they can do some read options and stuff like that. But he's also been able to stay healthy. That injury that happened wasn't from running. It was a shoulder injury from getting sacked. And so the fact that he's been able to stay healthy even when he's running is going to be is really important because there's not really any word for him to not be able to run. And I think that, like you were saying, his ability to scamper for just 10 yards, even on first or second down, and just keep a drive going is really going to hurt the Chiefs if they can't stop it. And they just got to be careful to not key on Jalen Hurts too much because of Kent Gainwell and Miles Sanders being the backs they are. And really the Eagles' O-line is just a really top-notch line with Jason Kelce and company.
Obviously, it definitely makes for something that you don't want to over-target, but it also cannot, it's hard to explain exactly how intricate it goes with Jalen Hurts because, like you say, there are all these other weapons, but it all begins with Hurts. And because of the fact that he can make a 1st and 10 into a 2nd and 3, and now you have unlimited opportunities, unlimited options within your offense. You can go to Gainwell. You can go to even Boston Scott in that short yard situation. You can go to Miles Sanders, or you can pass the ball. And you can pass the ball with confidence that you have more downs to play with. And you can run the ball with confidence that you have more downs to play with. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles are usually a downhill running team. So they use the run as a part of the way that they do kind of go 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, and just keep moving that chain. But Jalen Hurts is where that all starts.
Yeah. And I think really both these offenses are just really hard to stop in both their own respective ways. And I guess that's why those defensive coordinators are the ones making $1 million. And we're just here saying, yeah, it's going to be really hard to stop these offenses. But they obviously have a few answers. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how these defenses respond to almost two completely opposite offenses.
And I think that plays pretty well into our next little keys for the Philadelphia Eagles we'll roll into, because the number one key that I kind of am thinking is, and we both were thinking, especially for the offense, is to get off to a hot start for the Philadelphia Eagles and to be able to create and continue the momentum that they have coming off of 2 dominant victories. I explained this to Caleb before we were recording it, that the Eagles have had pretty dominant victories, so they've played playoff games a little differently than the Chiefs have. The Chiefs have been in dogfights, close games, and what can be the difference in a game like the Super Bowl is maybe the fact that one team is used to it and another team is not. And so the Eagles, to help avoid maybe the fact that they might be a little might be vulnerable to being outlasted by the Chiefs, could be a hot start and could be continuing to build that momentum off of these 2 impressive playoff wins to get them here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. They use their running game really well to manage the ball, but they can't try to overmanage it, because as much as they want to keep that ball out of Mahomes' hands, they can't keep the ball too much, because then they risk it stalling out of drives. And I think the experience by both these coaches, and the difference in that experience is going to play a big role, because Andy Reid, of course, he's been here multiple times, and this is Nick Sirianni's first time. I think that it's just going to be really difficult for the Eagles to sustain drives like they were, so they definitely need to utilize the ability of their running game to even make chunk plays to keep the ball going.
Yeah, for sure. If the Eagles can play their style, and that's kind of how I wanted to try to segment this, is, it's really going to come down to style. And the Eagles all season have, and it's a blatant statement slightly for a team that has a lot of victories, but they have gotten out to leads and kept their leads. Mm-hmm. Not too many of their wins are come from behind wins, dogfight victories. A lot of them are wins by more than one score, and wins that they were able to take a lead early on in the game. And now I don't believe in any sort of manner that this game will be a cruising victory by either side. I do believe it could be a heavy advantage to the Eagles if this game does kind of go in similar script or similar flow to how earlier games for them this season has gone. If this game is more of a dogfight, where maybe even the Chiefs come out on top, but then the Eagles come roaring back. The Chiefs have outlasted comebacks from the Bengals, outlasted potential comebacks from the Jaguars. So I think that they're pretty fine-tuned and ready for that. But that's a huge key, is how the Eagles start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that during the regular season they were leading their games 60% of the time. Like they had the lead 60% of the time over the entire season. So definitely something that they have to watch out for, is not assuming they're just going to have the lead and then be able to protect that lead, because that's how you lose a lead a lot of times. You're playing not to lose instead of playing to win.
Yeah, and I'm sure Nick Sirianni has these boys tuned up, but it's so hard to be able to comprehend exactly how grandiose of a scale this game is, and all the emotion, all the everything that goes into this game to make it so important what it is and make it mean so much. A little play like that can completely change the tone, completely change the story of how Super Bowl 57 will go. So I think early explosive plays from the Eagles could be a big sign that maybe things will start to go their way for this game. Might be a happy night in Philadelphia. I think maybe if they start slow and this game stays really tight, really close throughout the duration, Chiefs might have the will to outlast them in the end. So, and then we had one more key for defense on the Eagles is going to be able to keep and contain Patrick Mahomes from extending plays, not limited or specifically to sacking him or anything like that, but to specifically make him either get sacked or throw the ball away. Because what makes Mahomes so special is not necessarily like Jalen Hurts' ability to run for 10 yards every 3-4 plays and just matriculate the ball down the field that way, but it's to create an explosive play while he's out of the pocket, or even create a play that allows him to get positive yardage out of what was seemingly nothing or should have been a big loss.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how the mobility of quarterbacks has really changed the game, but it's still in two different ways. Jalen Hurts will run the ball, he'll extend plays, sure, and then go scramble. Mahomes does it almost the exact opposite. He'll stay behind the line of scrimmage, he'll run backwards, flip field and all that, and then get to Kelsey for 10, 15 yards. And I think it's really important for the Eagles to continue doing well in pressuring teams like they have all year. But then once they get to Mahomes, they cannot let him go. They can't let him break a sack and go, because that's when I would say for lots of teams, the quarterback breaks a sack and you're still like, oh crap, this play's broken. He's gonna get sacked, or it's just he's gonna throw away. With Mahomes, it's he just broke a tackle. You guys just gave him more time to go find a new guy, and I told you. It's kind of cliche, but they can't let Mahomes be Mahomes. So if they can get to him, they have to bring him down. They can't let him break those sacks or break the pocket and then go.
And when he's outside of the pocket, like you said, that's when these magical plays are created. But it makes sense, because if you are targeting just the passing game in general of the Chiefs, okay, yes, you can do that, and yes, you can have the greatest coverage in the world, or you can bring pressure to Mahomes, or whichever way you want to try to neutralize this passing attack. In the end, if you let Mahomes break pressure, if you're bringing in pressure, or if you just let him get outside of the pocket with normal pressure, that's when lapses in coverage begin to break down. Because an outside linebacker might believe that, now I need to go pursue Mahomes, I need to step up in the pocket, and underneath slips a running back, or slips Travis Kelce, or whoever else might be lying out there in his field of weapons that lay out in front of him while he ranges to his left or ranges to his right. It's extremely impressive that he does this, and like you said, you can't let Mahomes be Mahomes. There's teams have been able to stop him in the past. Teams have been able to rattle him in the past. So I think that just really containing him is going to be a huge issue. I know that both of our defensive keys are the opposite team's quarterback, but it's so important at this stage, especially when you have the two quarterbacks that these two teams have, and you have the styles that these two quarterbacks play. Like you mentioned, they're both mobile quarterbacks, and they both kind of have a little bit of their own type of style within their own mobility. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that. One point that I did want to say was the fact that Mahomes, has kind of matured as a mobile quarterback, and you can totally see that in his, new unwillingness to really take a lot of hits. Not saying that he won't go get these 4 or 5 yards, and there's a guy in front of him. He'll go get that yard, especially in a Super Bowl situation, season on the line situation. But he's not looking to run. Jalen Hurts will look to run, or will have it be higher up on his list of priorities. Very rarely is Mahomes looking to run. He's much more of a passing mobile quarterback versus a dual threat mobile quarterback.
Yeah, and another key, or I guess I should say a little mini key, Mahomes needs to make sure he doesn't try to do too much. He doesn't need to out Mahomes himself, if you want to keep using that. Because that's where some of his picks have come from, is him trying to do too much. I mean, the arm talent he has is insane, and the types of throws he can do is insane, but he needs to make sure he doesn't get ahead of himself. But I think he has matured really well for a quarterback, and will not let that happen. But definitely need to make sure he doesn't let the emotions of the Super Bowl and be like, I got to get this play to cloud his judgment.
So, that's a good point. And another good point that I wanted to bring up real quick is that this is not really something that could be super specific for a key for either team, because I think it's a general key for almost every team in any football game where you step on the field. But the turnover battle is going to be huge in this game. I personally am not going to give the advantage to one side or the other, or say that, if this team turns it over, they're going to, not be able to overcome that, or if this team doesn't get turnovers, they're not going to be able to win. No, that's not the case. This is a Super Bowl. This is a super even matchup.
Yeah.
Basically another 50-50 coin flip style game like we talk about. And in a lot of those 50-50 coin flip style games, it comes down to the turnover battle. So it'll be really interesting to see either which defense is creating turnovers flying around, or which would be less fun to see, or less great to see, which offense is maybe making mistakes causing turnovers. So
I wouldn't be surprised to see each team commit at least one turnover. As good as both these teams' offenses are at take care of the ball and just quality, I think, and of course the Eagles' defense has done a great job of turning the ball over this season, but I think both teams are going to turn over the ball at least once, whether it be a pick or a fumble.
Tends that either the Super Bowl is a super clean game with nothing, or like you say, either one, both sides gets one, type of thing like that. So I think that we both wanted to mention a little bit about how we think this line of scrimmage battle and the war in the trenches is going to go between these two sides, because both teams have extremely good defensive lines and extremely good offensive lines, and they match up with each other pretty interestingly. Before we roll into our picks segment.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs overcome their offensive line's shortcomings, although Andy Reid's done a great job of rebuilding this offensive line from where it was, but I don't think they're amazing. But the way he lets them do their job well is by just the schemes. But this Eagles defensive line just overpowers or just outplays everybody they play. I mean, you saw Hassan Reddick, he caused havoc last game, and then they have Brendan Graham, Ndamukong Suh, Fletcher Cox.
Yeah,
like,
just to name a few.
Yeah,
just
all
there's
these
so
names. So I think that it's going to be a sack. Well, maybe not a sack fest, but it's going to be really important up front. And Jason Kelce against Chris Jones and Frank Clark, that's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, like you mentioned, both sides of the Phillies' offensive and defensive lines have been extremely impressive this season, which has obviously led to a lot of their victory and their success. Their defensive line has been able to create a lot of sacks off the edge, whether it be with outside linebackers like Hassan Reddick or defensive ends like Sweat and I believe Ingram. The interior D-line is great at stopping the run, too. So you have Fletcher Cox. The Chiefs' offensive line is not necessarily popping out for names on paper. Creed Humphrey will be interesting how he matches up front against these big nose guards and big tackles that the Eagles bring at you. But I think that the Eagles kind of just, at least like visually and kind of almost on paper, seem to have the advantage almost on both sides of the trenches. But both teams have players and absolute studs and are ranking near the tops in the league, respectively, in a lot of categories with their lines.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have Creed Humphrey and Orlando Brown, and the Eagles have Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it's just star power all over. And I think that's what teams need to make it to the Super Bowl. And even just not even on the offensive and defensive lines of both these teams, but I feel like each team has at least one top 10, maybe top 15 player in every position group on the field, which is why they made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there's almost no holes, and we couldn't even begin to try to mention all of the linemen for both teams or all of the rotation guys.
Yeah.
That come in that make these bigger names even better, because a bigger name may be on the field only 2 out of 3 snaps of a game. It cannot even be stated for what that 1/3 is made up for by these other cogs in this. Both these teams, they have to be this good to have made it this far. You're only, a lot of people say you're only as good as your weakest link, or you're only as good as your worst guy type of attitude, which that's not obviously totally true. You can make up for some shortcomings with some things, But in reality, you have to be solid all over.
Yeah.
And both these teams are solid all over. And I think that's a great transition into our pick segment because I want to say that it's the Super Bowl. It's two teams. You know, you got two options. It's so hard to pick this game. I don't want to, demean either team by saying, oh yeah, I'm certain that this team is better than the other team. No, you play this game 100 times. One team might win 50, one might win 50, one might win 49, one might 51. It's about that dang close. I truly feel like it is. But that being said, for our picks segment, I will be picking the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to let Caleb give his pick and maybe give a little his justification, and then I will circle back and justify my pick.
I know it's kind of boring. There's no controversy or anything, but I'm also going to pick the Chiefs. I just think their experience, especially by head coach Andy Reid, I think that's going to kind of push them over the edge because even though the Eagles might have just a slightly stronger roster, I think the scheming and the cohesiveness of this Kansas City team under Andy Reid is just too... it's just a well-oiled machine, and I feel like they're used to this, and that's just going to carry them over the edge. You talked about emotions and momentum being even bigger factors in the Super Bowl, and I think that this Eagles team might be more susceptible to the volatility of those factors, and that the Chiefs are going to be a little bit more level-headed and be able to be more consistent and methodical in the way they approach this game.
I think you make some great points, and like you say, it's not really great for discourse because of the fact that we are both picking on the same side.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, the Chiefs are not favored to win this game by Vegas odds, so we are both picking the underdog. But for me, it really weighs a lot, like Caleb says, on experience. Both these teams match up super well. It's hard to even really foresee exactly how this could go down because of the reason that it could happen in so many ways. Each team could have something happen in their favor that leads to a big momentum swing, or likewise a huge devastating fumble or something of that sort. But in the end, I have to give the edge to experience here. The Chiefs have kind of really they win football games, and they've won more football games than any team in the last 4 years. So, it's hard for me to go with the newer, new onto the scene Eagles, although they've done so much this year to prove to you, and that's what all that really matters is this year. The Chiefs team of 4 years ago, really, although there may be some experience lying over, that does not really have a ton to do with the outcome of this season.
Mm-hmm.
But both with teams that have such close to equal results throughout the regular season, I'm going to have to go with my instincts here to go with the experience and go with the older quarterback and the better quarterback.
Fair enough. And I like the the ESPN type stats that are super specific or kind of goofy. I'm a fan of those. Maybe not like to justify my picks and stuff, but I just think they're kind of interesting. Something I saw, the team wearing the white uniforms has won 6 out of the last 7 Super Bowls or something like that. Chiefs are wearing the white uniform. And also, I've been seeing this graphic going around where the evenness of the two teams, they're 16 and they're both 16-3, and they've both scored 546 points this season.
Oh wow!
So that's how evenly matched these teams are, and I think those are just goofy stats that I thought would be interesting to bring up just because they're kind of funny.
So I thought that's funny that you bring that up. I thought you were going to bring up the fact there's a picture leaked out that says the NFL leaked its script of the Super Bowl that has the Eagles winning 37-34. So that picture, if anything, could be another reason why I'm picking the Chiefs, because of course that's not going to be correct.
Yeah, I think I saw if you look at the box score, I think the Eagles come back from a 24-point deficit in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now that that script has gone out, the NFL's like, well, now we gotta switch.
Oh, we gotta change the script so now the Chiefs are gonna win. No,
Yeah.
the NFL is not scripted, folks. Maybe the refs might have something to do with some influence, but I can tell you right now that this game will not end 37-34 Philadelphia Eagles, even if the Eagles are the ones that win. However, one thing that I will be taking from this, scripted score, not really taking from it, but something that I maybe would be happy to see if the script did come true, is the fact that would have 71 points scored in the football game, which would be a lot for a Super Bowl. This is going to lead us into the best bets segment. A reminder that I went 5-0 throughout the playoffs of best bets that I gave out on this here show. And it's tough. It's the Super Bowl. You have a bunch of player props that you can pick from. But on the full game line, you got about 4 options. You got the Chiefs to win, the Eagles to win, or the over the under. I'm picking the Chiefs. Probably not going to put any money on the Chiefs. I do think that this game is going to have a lot of points scored. The over opened at 49.5. It's already shot up to 51. Get it before it gets over 51.5. If it's anything over 52, don't touch it. That's a very key number. If you do some maths with 7s and 5s, which are very common in football, you'll end up knowing that 52 is a pretty important number. I wish I could have gotten this at the very beginning at 49 and bought it down to 48.5, because that again is 49 is a very key number using 7s.
Yeah.
So with that same math, I'm not going to take much more than a field goal over what this line opened at, but I do like this game to be high scoring. Super Bowls don't tend to really be high scoring historically, but these two teams, they're great offensively. I just don't see one team getting shut down, which a lot of times leads to an underhitting. I do think that the winner of this game is probably going to have to score 30 points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, into betting that much, but I mean, just the field test. Both these offenses are really good, and both these defenses are pretty good, but I still don't see them. I mean, you saw what the Chiefs or the Eagles did to the amazing Niners defense. They still put 31 up, so obviously they can still put up numbers against a good defense. I would say the Niners defense is better than the Chiefs. So if anything, the Eagles are still going to be able to put up points, and I think the Chiefs will put up points against any defense in the league, no matter how good they are.
I'm excited to see. I mean, any situation can happen. This game could totally come out and be a dogfight, and the winner could have 16 points. But I lean towards it being a higher scoring game. I hope everybody enjoyed listening to us talk about this game. It's the last game that we're going to be able to preview for you guys until next year's NFL season. I do hope you guys tune back in for our recap of this Super Bowl. We'll get that to you as soon as we can next week after we figure out what does happen in the game itself. And then I encourage that you continue to tune in throughout the offseason, as we will bring you content as we are able. Me and Caleb are both students, but we will keep doing this because we enjoy doing it, and I hope you enjoy listening. So until next time, have a good one, guys.
See ya.